Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to do a recap on the All-American. All-American was the 40th annual All-American at Lake Hartwell, and we actually qualified for that tournament out of the La Crosse, Wisconsin BFL Regional. We kind of did pretty much the same thing we did in that La Crosse tournament. We carried over to Hartwell, so we caught them on topwater and flukes. One of the things about Hartwell is it's got a lot of cane piles. Every point that you basically would run over would have a cane pile, and they would basically be right on the tips of the point. So you kind of had to weed through a lot of cane piles and see which ones you like the best, and then I kind of made a milk run of all the different areas that I would like to fish. The first day of practice was okay. I might have caught like 10 keepers, and I did a lot of looking. I've marked a lot more cane piles. It wasn't the best, but it was a cloudy and a little windy, so the fishing was all right. The fish would commit to the bait a little bit more than what they would if it was completely sunny. The second day of practice was absolutely miserable. It was probably the worst day of practices. I actually had texted my wife and said, you might as well not even come down, because I didn't catch a keeper until 2 o'clock, so it was not very much fun. It was also Memorial Day weekend, and there was a lot of boat traffic, but the fish just did not. I don't know. They were there. You could see them on live scope. They just didn't cooperate. The last day of practice we had until 12 o'clock, and then we had to be off the water. Well, we get out there, and it was cloudy. It was overcast. It was a little bit of wind on the water. The fish were just a lot more active than they were the day before. I was able to find a few areas that I had some confidence in, a couple points where there would be, you'd throw your topwater over the point and you'd have 20 or 30 fish follow your bait. And some of them were spotted bass, some of them were wipers and stripers, but I was able to get a little bit of confidence in that topwater deal, and it gave me a little confidence going into tournament day. So tournament day, day one, I was able to catch all my keepers on topwater. I caught them all on an OG float, which is a herring style bait that I don't actually have one with me right now. I gave it back to my buddy, but I caught them all on that, and I was using a 7-foot medium heavy rod. It's a pretty good all-around rod. I use it a lot for like my jigs and some bigger spinner baits, and pretty much if there was a rod that I had to have, that would be the one to do just about anything. But I just kind of threw it on that rod, didn't really know what I was doing. I had 15-pound fluorocarbon and was basically just throwing it out there, and then would reel it in as fast as I could for 5 or 6 cranks, and then pause it and then repeat all the way back to the boat. And some of them spots and some of them big wipers or stripers or whatever you want to call them would just annihilate that bait the first day, and it was awesome. Fast forward to the second day, and they probably would have still committed to that, but they were kind of slowing down on that. I don't know if it was the fishing pressure or just the conditions or what, but I started throwing a white ice zoom super fluke. I would basically rig it weightless on a 5/0 hybrid worm G finesse hook, and I threw it on a 610 medium rod and threw it on a spinning rod, and I threw it on 12-pound braid to 10-pound fluorocarbon. I was able to launch this bait out a lot farther than if I was throwing it on a bait caster, and I'd throw it out and I'd just wind it in as fast as I could, and I'd pause it and I'd wind it in as fast as I could, and I was basically just trying to get a reaction bite. And a lot of times I'd pull the school off these cane piles, and they'd come up 20 feet from below the surface to come up and look at this thing. And a lot of times they'd actually come up and even spin around on the bait, like they changed their mind basically. They'd come flying up as fast as they could, and they'd get to the bait and they'd change their mind to where they didn't want to eat it anymore. And you'd see a swirl, but you never actually had a bite. So that was really frustrating, but at least I knew that they would come up after that, and it seemed to do a pretty good job for me. The second day I caught all my fish, and then I was able to cull one time with a Megabass 110 plus 1 jerkbait in the Wakasagi color. But other than that, everything came on that fluke. That was a pretty big deal for me that on day 2, and I was able to get 13.5 pounds in the boat. Was in 8th place going into the last day, and so I made the top 10 cut. So that was a lot better than the last time I was in the All-American, and I was pretty pumped to be fishing the last day. So the last day, the conditions were basically like they were the Monday of practice when I had a horrible day of practice. I was kind of nervous about that, but the worst we could drop is 10th, so we're just going to go fishing. We're going to try and learn as much as we can from the day, and we'll see what the day holds. One bait that I started throwing on the last day was this riser bait, and a lot of guys in the top 10 were actually throwing it, and it's a really good bait on that lake. They're really hard to find. I threw that the last day. I caught one of my keepers. I missed 2 on it, and then the rest of my fish came on on that white ice Zoom Super Fluke again. We really struggled on the last day. We only managed 3 keepers, but we were really happy to make the final day cut and to get that top 10 finish in the All-American. Hope you enjoyed the recap. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Check out all my other videos. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about Hartwell, and we'll see you guys next time.